Randy Meisner, a founding member of the Eagles, has died at the age of 77.
Bright lights sweep a roaring crowd. Night stretches into dawn, and still the road calls. Offstage, whispers of strain coil in quiet hallways. Each chord played, each roar met, curves deeper lines of pressure and pride. Somewhere within the relentless cycle, harmony cracks. A split unfolds when one voice breaks under unyielding demand and another claims its place. This moment changed a legendary band forever. In this story, we uncover the hidden fault line in rock history that changed everything. But what happens when the dream becomes a treadmill and each encore is just another mile in the marathon? When the cheers fade and the silence backstage grows heavier, who breaks first? And what price does greatness demand from those who chase it? The relentless road grind. From January 1976 through July 1977, the Eagles were on the road without long breaks. After they released Hotel California in December 1976, demand for live shows grew faster than they could handle. Managers booked dates across North America and Europe. The band left Los Angeles on January 10, 1977, for a tour that lasted over 18 months. They traveled each day by bus, plane, or van. At night, they performed for packed audiences. Then they moved on again at dawn. The routine was simple but brutal. Wake up early, load gear. Drive to the next city. Set up the stage, run sound checks, do interviews, play the show, pack up gear, board the bus, try to sleep. Managers scheduled radio and television spots in each city. The band appeared on shows to promote their songs. This pattern repeated without pause. Rare days off offered only rest after long flights. Over time, the band and crew felt worn down. What began as excitement turned into a test of endurance. The band often stayed in motels with thin walls and stiff beds. Sleep was short when hallways echoed and early calls arrived. Newspapers and radio stations talked about the Eagles all week in each city. Crew members worked in shifting roles. Roadies carried heavy cases from the truck to the stage. Lighting techs climbed tall scaffolds. Sound engineers fixed microphones and instruments under tight deadlines. Drivers covered hundreds of miles to reach the next stop. The catering staff served quick meals to keep the band going. Members sometimes paused to sign items, greeting fans despite exhaustion. Each of them raced against the clock. They rarely saw a full night's sleep. In spring 1977, the Eagles squeezed 70 shows into 90 days. They hit New York City, Miami, Boston, and Detroit in quick succession. Promoters pressed for repeat songs, even as Randy fell behind. In one stretch, they played 6 nights in a row in different towns. Crew said it felt like running on a treadmill that never slowed. 2 days off came only after a long overnight flight that left them groggy. Randy Meisner began to suffer the most. His stomach ulcer, which he had fought before, flared up under the strain. Hotel meals and vending machine snacks offered little relief. He took antacid pills around the clock. He skipped meals when the pain flared. Each show taxed his body. The crew saw him wince at sound checks and hold his side when he thought no one was watching. Glenn Frey noticed the change. Frey carried his burdens, from back pain to songwriting deadlines. He balanced lead vocals, guitar parts, and band decisions. He expected full effort from every member. As Randy's health slipped, Frey grew concerned about the quality of the show and the band's reputation. He met often with manager Elliot Roberts and label head David Geffen to keep things on track. Not all days were bleak. On some nights, the crowd's energy carried the band forward. Fans sang every lyric, and the group played through fatigue. Those evenings felt like a reward for the hard work. The crew smiled and relaxed before the next loadout. On other nights, equipment issues or a wrong chord rattled the band. They rushed through songs and hurried off stage, eager to regroup. Short breaks offered moments of relaxation. Randy sometimes found a quiet corner to rest. Glenn Frey and Don Henley walked outside for fresh air. Joe Walsh sketched guitar riffs in a notebook. Don Felder reviewed the next song's parts. These pauses lasted only minutes. Then a call from management sent them right back into the schedule. By midsummer 1977, the tour had drained the Eagles. Cities and hotels blurred together. Nights and days merged in one long cycle of drive, play, and move. Crew members joked they could do the routine blindfolded. The band pushed forward, but cracks began to show under the strain. This relentless road grind exposed tensions under the surface and shifted the balance of power within the group. For Randy Meisner, it set the stage for a turning point. The constant pressure on the road led directly to the moment that would change the Eagles forever. But what happens when your greatest gift begins to betray you? Night after night, under blinding lights and relentless expectations. When your voice, once the spine of the sound, starts to slip, who steps in and who steps away? Randy's voice on the ragged edge. When the Eagles hit the stage each night, Randy Meisner carried a heavy load. From the start of the Hotel California tour, he faced a growing struggle with his singing. His signature part of the song, where the melody climbs to its peak, demands strong lungs and a clear tone. Over months of shows, his throat grew sore. He found it harder to reach the high chord without straining. Early in the tour, technicians spotted him pulling back from the microphone. In Philadelphia, during sound check, he cut the levels low as if he could not risk pushing his voice. In Detroit, he paused after a verse, letting another singer fill in until he could resume. None of this went unnoticed. Glenn Frey heard the shift in balance. Though Frey had his vocal parts to manage, he saw Randy's falter as a threat to the tight blend fans expected. Randy's health problems added to the risk. He had a long history of a stomach ulcer that flared under stress. The rush from one city to another left him with poor meals. Vending machine sandwiches and motel breakfasts lacked nutrition. He took antacid pills whenever he could, but still faced pain. The ulcer pain sometimes shot through his chest, making deep breathing hard. Without full breaths, singing even low notes could bust his control. To protect his voice, Randy tried resting before sound checks. He skipped warm-up practices that seemed to tire him more. He drank water instead of juice or coffee. He avoided laughing too hard or speaking loudly backstage. Crew members noticed him leaning away from the mic stand and using a headset and ear monitor more than his bandmates. He wrapped a scarf loosely around his neck to keep his throat warm. On slow days, he practiced vocal exercises in his room, but time was scarce. Of all the songs, the one with the high line posed the biggest danger. Fans came to hear it every night. Sound engineers tuned his mic just right so he could push the note without feedback. Still, each performance risked a crack or a flat. After the shows, Randy often wiped his face and drifted to the bus in silence. He avoided small talk until he could calm his breathing and let his voice settle. Glenn Frey grew worried. He met with band manager Elliot Roberts and noted that the group could not afford a weak link. During rehearsals, Frey asked Randy to run the hard sections again and again until he got them right. When Randy asked for rest or a simpler part, Frey agreed only on the condition that the show sounded solid. Tensions rose, as Randy felt pushed while already under strain. As weeks passed, the strain on Randy's voice slowly led to a crisis. The tension between delivering perfect shows and keeping a singer healthy created constant friction. Those close to the band could sense that the pressure on Randy would not let him stay on cruise control much longer. Everything hinged on whether he could hold that voice together under the relentless demands of the tour. Sound engineers worked to ease his burden. They adjusted equalizer settings to boost his Mikey's low tones. Monitor levels changed so he heard himself without pushing his voice. The crew offered herbal tea with honey. These quick fixes could not mend a voice worn truly thin by nightly strain. Management also tried to help. Manager Elliot Roberts booked short vocal coach sessions during tour stops. Those lessons taught Randy fast warm-up drills. Minutes spent on training cut into the rest. On days off, he chose sleep over practice. That left him less ready for the next show. Inside the band, Don Henley felt torn between loyalty and the group's needs. He offered to swap lead parts or share lines, but Randy insisted on his role. That pride added to his burden. Joe Walsh cracked jokes to ease tension, yet laughter sometimes hurt Randy's throat. Support and distance showed how little he could relax on this tour. Fans noticed, too. At a May show in Houston, Randy hesitated before the high part. The audience cheered longer, waiting for the note that came more softly. Some praised his natural emotion. Others talked about his strain. Still, the show moved on, and Randy carried on. Each night, a tightrope between success and slip. The Knoxville Blow-Up. On June 17, 1977, the Eagles stepped onto the stage at Knoxville Civic Coliseum. The crowd's roar filled the building as they launched into the opening song. Backstage, Randy Meisner felt a surge of pain from his stomach ulcer. He had woken that morning with a headache, stiff neck, and lingering fatigue from the previous night's show in Birmingham. Despite the signs, he told no one how badly he felt. Earlier that afternoon, during sound check, technicians noticed Randy favoring his left side. He sang through his headset mic with caution, asking the engineer for a lower monitor mix. He skipped a few practice runs on the toughest song. The engineers exchanged concerned looks. They knew the tour schedule offered little time for rest or recovery. Through the first half of the concert, Randy moved through bass lines with care. He watched his breathing as he sang low harmony parts. The band played smoothly. Glenn Frey handled guitar solos and led vocals with the usual flair. Don Henley managed the drums and offered backing vocals. Joe Walsh added his trademark slide guitar. Don Felder kept the rhythm tight. The show flowed as rehearsed. When the set moved into the final song, the one with the highest vocal demand, everything changed. The melody rose, and Randy had to step forward. He took a deep breath, but the ulcer pain shot through his chest. He backed away from the microphone. The audience sensed a stumble in the harmony. A few fans called out encouragement, but Randy hesitated. Frey noticed on stage. He signaled Randy to take his place. Randy shook his head and waved his hand. Glenn finished his vocal line alone while the rest of the band held the last chord. The shift felt sharp in the arena silence. As the band finished the final chords, Glenn Frey met Randy behind the band's gear. Frey's face was tense. He asked why Randy would risk a weak note in front of thousands. Meisner said he could not hold the high line and begged forgiveness. Frey repeated the question more sharply. Words passed fast between them. Frey claimed Randy was putting the show and the tour at risk. Randy said he had given all he had and was in pain. Frey's voice rose. Randy answered back. A few road crew and security staff hovered nearby. Frey shoved Randy's shoulder. Meisner stumbled into an amp stack. Randy spun and pushed Frey back. The scuffle lasted only seconds before the crew stepped in. A roadie guided Randy away. Frey stood breathing hard, hands shaking. Don Henley watched with concern, but did not intervene until the fight ended. The band left the stage without a resolution. Randy rode back to the hotel separately, but only a few noticed his departure. Frey returned to the bus, trailing anger and worry. He paced the narrow aisle, running scenarios through his head. He feared a repeat of what happened in Knoxville would damage the group's reputation. He weighed choices, push Randy harder, or find another solution. In the early hours, managers met with Frey and Don Henley. They reviewed what occurred. The group agreed Randy's health was a concern, but the priority remained the show. They debated whether to cancel a song or lower the key permanently. Frey argued they needed a firm stance. Henley agreed, but expressed some sympathy. Roberts and Geffen listened and noted the tension. They planned to adjust the next venue's logistics to monitor Randy more closely. The next day, Knoxville papers ran short headlines about a late finish. Fans speculated about technical issues, unaware of the clash. The band prepared for the next stop in Atlanta. Randy remained quiet, often alone in the dressing room. Frey kept his distance. The unity that had held the Eagles together felt fragile. The crew sensed a change as conversations grew tense. Equipment was checked more strictly as if anticipation of another incident loomed. That blow-up in Knoxville marked a turn. It revealed how tight the line was between keeping the show on track and caring for a member in pain. For Randy, it was a point of no return. For Frey, it was a moment that changed the rest of the tour. The clash echoed on every stage after Knoxville, coloring music with the memory of a fight that fans never saw. That conflict would be remembered long after the tour. Frey's quiet power play. After the fight in Knoxville, Glenn Frey changed how he worked with Randy Meisner. He moved more firmly. He stopped asking for Randy's input on set lists and let others speak over him. In meetings, Frey spoke first. He chose which songs to add or remove. He picked the order of the show. Randy was there, but his voice mattered less. The change seemed small at first. Few people noticed. Over time, it showed itself in many ways. Frey and Don Henley met with manager Elliot Roberts and label executive David Geffen. They talked about keeping the tour on track. They spoke of making decisions fast. Roberts agreed that the band needed better leadership. Geffen supported any move that kept ticket sales high. Frey laid out his plan. Randy was not at that meeting. He learned of the new rules later when rehearsals began. Randy felt the shift immediately. Frey and Henley ran the sessions. They started without Randy. If he arrived late, they went ahead without him. They cut down time for practice songs. They pressed for exact performance. Randy felt pushed. He tried to speak up, but Frey and Henley ignored him. They acted as if he were a guest, not a full member. This quiet cutting out began to wear on him. Frey handled finances more tightly as well. He met with Roberts to review income from merchandise and ticket sales. He won support to alter how profits were shared. He arranged for production costs to come before paychecks. Randy found his share smaller each week. Frey said it was standard practice, but Randy saw it as another sign of distrust. He watched his bank account grow more slowly. He reviewed expense receipts and approved each tour bill before release. On stage, Frey took more control. He tested new arrangements for songs. He switched parts to ease Randy's burden, but also to highlight his own. He changed a few chords in the high parts, moving them to a lower key. It helped Randy's voice, but put Frey's guitar parts more in focus. Fans noticed a fresh sound. People praised the band's tight performance. Few guessed it came from Frey's new influence in arranging music. Tour plans shifted in small ways. Frey asked that the band travel by chartered plane more often. This cost more but offered stability. He booked well-reviewed hotels for the group. He placed Randy's room far from the common areas. Frey claimed it was for privacy. Randy felt alone. Crew members said he spent more time in his room. Frey scheduled quick crew calls, so Randy missed some. The pattern kept him out of decisions and group time. Frey also controlled public messages. In interviews with Rolling Stone and radio spots, he emphasized the Eagles' unity and smooth road life. He praised teamwork habits, speaking of shared joy and performance. He never mentioned the backstage struggles or Randy's pain. The media heard only the confident front. Fans read headline stories of perfect shows. Randy saw those articles and felt his struggles were invisible to the world. His sense of isolation deepened. Other band members fell in line. Joe Walsh accepted Frey's new lead role without protest. Don Felder stayed focused on his parts. Don Henley gained a close ally in Frey, building their songwriting partnership. Only Randy seemed outside the circle. They wanted the show to continue without challenges. They saw Frey as the safest bet. They trusted his vision to keep the Eagles on top, even if it meant leaving one member behind. Even the crew noticed the tension. Roadies talked about Randy's place on the bus. Sound engineers knew who to answer first. When Randy spoke up about a mic issue, they sent a Frey staff member instead. Small actions made Randy feel he no longer had a home in the band. He played his parts, but his spirit frayed. His isolation grew each day. Frey's quiet power play did not make gossip pages. It stayed in the wings of tour buses and backstage corridors, but it shaped every show after Knoxville. Frey's vision steered the Eagles through the rest of the Hotel California tour. It set the stage for the final farewell that would end Randy's time with the band for good. How does a man say goodbye without saying a word? When the crowd roars, the spotlight blinds, and only the band knows what's truly ending. As the final notes echoed through East Troy, one member carried a silent truth that would never make the encore. The final farewell in East Troy. On September 3, 1977, the Eagles played the last show of their Hotel California tour at Alpine Valley Music Theater in East Troy, Wisconsin. This date marked the end of a grueling 18-month run, covering more than 100 cities across North America and Europe. The outdoor venue sat among rolling hills and pine trees, creating a peaceful contrast to the band's intense road life. Fans arrived early, tailgating with guitars, coolers, and homemade signs. As evening fell, stage lights carved sharp shapes against the dusky sky. For Randy Meisner, that night carried more weight than any before. He stepped onto the stage aware that this would be his final performance with the band. Each chord he played and line he sang would mark the close of a career chapter he had hoped would last long after this night. Behind the scenes, tension had built since the earlier conflict in Knoxville. Randy's health was fragile. His ulcer pain returned over the past weeks. He spent hours in his dressing room before the show, pacing and breathing slowly to soothe his stomach. He drank warm water and took his medications. The crew handed him a hot water bottle while he rested on a dressing room couch. He knew he had to sing the band's signature songs one more time, including that challenging melody where he held a long, high part. Sound engineers tuned his microphone carefully. They adjusted the mix so he did not have to push his voice too hard. On stage, Randy delivered a performance that blended strength and strain. He stood slightly to one side, holding his bass guitar and eyeing his monitor speaker. As the first chords rang out, he sang the lower parts much better. By the middle of the set, he stepped forward to sing that high ending line. He took a deep breath, paused, and lifted his head. He hit the note, but it cracked shortly before settling. He held it as long as he could, then exhaled and replaced his mic. The audience responded with applause. Some fans jumped and cheered, thrilled by the moment. Randy let the applause wash over him, knowing the note had cost him more effort than usual. After the show, the band headed backstage for a final meeting. Glenn Frey and Don Henley joined Randy, manager Elliot Roberts, and label head David Geffen. The mood was serious. Frey spoke first. He said the band needed a fresh start. He praised Randy's contributions, but noted the strain on his voice and health. Henley agreed. Roberts and Geffen listened and nodded. They discussed the tour's end and the next steps for the band. Without surprise, Frey announced that Randy would not continue with the Eagles. He handed Randy a separation agreement and outlined the terms for a buyout of his share in ongoing profits. Randy read the papers in silence. Randy signed the agreement, knowing he had no choice. A handshake followed, polite but final. He left the room and walked down a dim hallway toward his dressing area. Crew members gave him silent nods as he passed. No one spoke. He packed his guitar, microphone stand, and a few personal items into cases. Outside, his tour bus idled. He climbed aboard with his belongings. The driver offered a nod. Randy pulled a small paper sack from his jacket pocket and ate a quick sandwich. He stared out the window at the stage lights, now dark and empty. He thought of the thousands of fans who would wake to hear news of his departure. But for the moment, he felt only the weight of one quiet goodbye. In the wings, bassist Timothy B. Schmidt watched the end unfold. He had flown in earlier that day, briefed on Meisner's struggles, and prepared to step in. When the final notes faded, Schmidt climbed the stairs to the stage and greeted the remaining band members. He carried his bass guitar with steady hands. Frey clasped Schmidt's shoulder, signaling trust and relief. The first show with the new lineup came days later, but the handoff in East Troy set the tone. Back in the dressing area, a small group of road crew gathered around Schmidt's case, eager to welcome him. That moment closed one chapter and opened another. The Eagles moved forward, their music unchanged, but their lineup forever altered and deeply humbled them all. In the quiet after East Troy, a new rhythm began to pulse. One bassist left the spotlight. Another stepped into it. But could Timothy B. Schmidt carry the weight of legacy and expectation without faltering, especially when every note would be measured against the voice that came before? A new bass, a new era. Timothy B. Schmidt stepped into a difficult position when he joined the Eagles in the fall of 1977. He replaced Randy Meisner on bass and backing vocals after Meisner left the band at the end of the Hotel California tour. Schmidt built his reputation as a singer and bassist with Poco, where he demonstrated great voice and rhythm work. Frey and Henley needed someone who could deliver consistently on stage and in the studio. Schmidt fit their requirements and accepted the offer. His first days with the Eagles were a whirlwind. He flew to Los Angeles and attended a rehearsal at the record plant studio. Frey explained that they planned to record new songs and launch another tour right away. Schmidt learned the existing set list in a few long sessions. He practiced bass lines, memorized harmonies, and studied the arrangements for Hotel California tracks. The goal was to match the band's sound while bringing stability that strengthened the group. Live performances tested him immediately. The Eagles scheduled warm-up shows at a small club in Long Beach. There, Schmidt played in front of a crowd of a few hundred fans. He focused on timing, clean bass tones, and blending his voice with Frey and Henley. The crew adjusted monitor levels so he could hear Frey's guitar and Henley's vocals. During these shows, Schmidt did not try to imitate Meisner exactly. He used a smoother attack on his bass strings and relied on his strength in singing precise harmonies without error. In the coming months, the Eagles moved into the studio for their next album. Frey and Henley wrote new songs, and Schmidt joined early in the arrangement process. His ideas influenced the groove on tracks like Heartache Tonight, where his pulse underpinned the driving beat. He sang on every harmony line, often adding a fresh tone that complemented Frey's and Henley's voices. Recording sessions ran long, but Schmidt's professionalism impressed the team. Engineers noted that he came prepared with charts and bass riffs. Beyond performance, Schmidt contributed to songwriting. He co-wrote I Cannot Tell You Why with Frey and Henley. His melodic sense changed the song's smooth feel. When producer Bill Shimchick played the demo, Frey praised Schmidt's verse idea. Recording the track took days as vocalists layered parts. Schmidt recorded his solo lead vocal in one session. When the song was released as a single, it reached the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. This success reinforced his place in the band's creative team. Schmidt's arrival also eased tensions within the group. His easygoing nature balanced Frey's direct leadership and Henley's focus. In meetings about tour routing and filming plans, he listened more than he spoke. The group valued his input when he offered a suggestion. They saw him as a teammate rather than a rival. This new balance of personalities helped the Eagles move past Meisner's departure quickly. When the album was complete, titled The Long Run, the band planned another major tour. Schmidt learned the new songs in rehearsals held in Miami. They added numbers from Hotel California and earlier albums. Schmidt refined his performance in small warm-up gigs before hitting stadiums again. The Long Run tour started in June 1979 and lasted into the next year. Schmidt stood confidently on stage, bass guitar in hand, backing vocals solid. He navigated long sets with no incidents of missed notes or faltered harmonies. On stage, Schmidt's style differed from Meisner's energetic moves. He was more reserved, anchoring footwork and clean bass lines. Frey and Henley adjusted some stage choreography to account for his style. They positioned him center stage during key harmony breaks so fans could see his face. The crew noted that his roadbox displayed fewer personal effects than the others. He spent more time preparing than socializing in the bus aisles. The Eagles recorded 2 more tracks for a greatest hits package in 1980. Schmidt played on the new songs and sang his parts flawlessly in one take each. That success cemented his role. Managers praised the decision to replace Meisner with someone who could meet the group's demands without drama. Frey told journalists that Schmidt gave the Eagles new energy while keeping the sound familiar. Fans agreed, sending the compilation album into the top 10. Stepping into Meisner's shoes was challenging, but Schmidt's work helped the Eagles enjoy one of their most productive periods. In interviews later, Schmidt described joining the Eagles as an honor and a learning curve that shaped his career. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, look at Glenn Frey's move and Randy Meisner's journey. Please leave a comment down below on what you think. Stay tuned and keep rocking with us.